We all know the pandemic has created a tremendous job shift here in the United States. And the good news is that momentum is coming your direction. As a financial advisor running a financial practice, people want to work for you. Let's talk about exactly what that means and how you can capitalize on it.
This is The Rare Advisor, proud to be a part of the Advisor Advancement Network and home of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. Your host is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of and securities are offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Hey, as the saying goes, good help is hard to find. And today, many would probably argue that's even more the case than ever before. Thanks to the pandemic, we went from a very full job market prior to the pandemic to then having a decimated job market during the pandemic to now having a very full job market again. But it's not the same market that it was prior to the pandemic. And that's what I think is the stumbling block for so many employers is they don't seem to understand that, what's that book? The cheese has moved. Your cheese has been moved, right? So what's happened is there's been a shift in the type of workers that are out there. So depending on what type of business you're running, that's either working to your advantage or it's working to your disadvantage. Now, I will argue for the financial advisor, for running a financial practice, it's working more toward your advantage than against your advantage. And I want to chat a little bit about that so you can understand how to potentially go find a new breed of new employees. Those that can be good and cultivated for your world. So there's been a tremendous job shift. In fact, Axios had an article on June 6th titled Where the Jobs Moved. So where your cheese moved to, right? Changes in jobs from February of 2020. Remember, that's kind of when the crisis really hit, or the pandemic itself really hit. February of 2020 to May of 2022 by sector. So you can go Google this up for yourself, but basically here's what the graphic looks like. And these sectors increased in blue, they increased their job totals. And then in the orange or the red here, they decreased their job totals. So let's talk about that. Professional and business services saw the greatest increase. That's you. Right? Professional and business services, that's you, a financial advisory practice, saw the greatest job increase, the sway, the direction that people wanted to head with their jobs. Also, there was big increases in transportation and warehousing. There was some increases in retail trade, in direct financial activities, information, and construction. But I would argue professional and business services, that big arching group which you fall under, that's where you want to concentrate. People have been moving to that. Why? In part because they had to, because things like leisure and hospitality dried up entirely. Restaurants closed, resorts closed, different entertainment venues closed altogether. So that leisure and hospitality really got hit hard. It was the hardest hit by a long shot, and it got hit harder than any others group. So that was huge. Then we have the hypocritical government view, which, don't get me started on politics. I'll try to stay away from that as best I can. But reality is reality. The government talks out of two sides of its mouth. They're talking about how private sector is to create all these jobs, and they put all the pressure, and they want to put the, kind of the blame, so to speak, on private sector, because heaven forbid a politician take any of the blame. But the reality is government jobs are down and they haven't come back. So the increase in jobs is not because of the government employing people, which is a good thing, by the way, in most instances. But nonetheless, the government wants to blame everybody else, and yet they've not hired back. At least statistically speaking, based upon this article, they are the second largest category of job loss on there. And then education and health services has seen a hit. Other services, just as an overall encompassing arching other services category, has seen a hit. Mining, logging, wholesale, trade, manufacturing, utilities have all taken a hit. But the part that matters most is that a lot of those groups who I just mentioned taking a hit, they're looking to get into the professional and business services area. So if you know of someone who you're like, you know what? Every time I've seen that person in their normal environment, they've been a high performer. Maybe they'd be a high performer for you. Maybe you should talk to them about that new role. Maybe they're interested in that. Maybe, just as we've discussed on previous rare discussions, maybe they would like to have the opportunity to work in a more hybrid environment rather than being on site, face to face, on their feet every day if they were in the leisure and hospitality business versus the professional and business services arena. And again, put that on top of the fact that private sector, they're saying to us in the article, the private sector has recovered 99% of its jobs lost. But like I said before about the government, the public sector has only regained 58%. So compensation is changing. Business policies are changing. Remote versus hybrid versus on-site is changing. The big companies, the big dumb companies, the big dumb government, they can't move fast enough. You can capitalize on this. You can adapt. You can adjust. Check out previous rares where we've talked about how you, meaning you advisors affiliated with USA Financial, and specifically us here at the home office USA Financial, how we've embraced the change since the pandemic and the way we've implemented tools to be successful in a hybrid environment. Now, again, you have to determine how that makes most sense for you in your practice, but it's a point of leverage that you can capitalize on. If you want to, you can do it.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.